Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Trisha, and I'm with Insectopia. I want to thank you all for being here today on day 22 of Invertober. We've been live streaming every day of the month of October. It has been a great time. I've had a whole blast. I've had a blast with you guys. We've done all different types of stuff. We've had so many great conversations. I'm so happy about all of that. We had the opportunity to meet live animals and do tarot symbology and all types of stuff. Today is a Saturday, so we will be spreading Death's Head Sphinx moths. You can see, let's go ahead and turn back on this camera here. So when we're talking about a Sphinx moth, I don't know if I ever defined this. When we're talking about a Sphinx moth, one of the big characteristics that you'll see is that the hind wing is about half of the size of the forewing. And in moths, that's actually going to be one of the defining characteristics for your death's heads. Or not for the death heads, but for Sphinx moths in general. So if you ever are checking out a Sphinx moth, you'll know it's a Sphinx moth if the hind wings are about half the size of the front wings. Sometimes the hair gets a little funny on the pronotum, or right here on the skull part. This one turned out pretty good. This one here stayed kind of dark. Almost darker than I wanted it to. But alas. So those are death's heads that we spread on last Saturday. But now we're going to go ahead and scooch it down and keep going. Let's see if I can, pull the camera just a little closer. That'll work. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off that autofocus because that'll drive me up a wall. Perfect. Alright, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Pick a moth from the relaxation chamber. So, Susan, have you ever spread a butterfly or a moth yourself before? I'm curious if anybody out there has experience doing this themselves. So this is our moth envelope. It is glued on these edges, but a lot of times the first one I will actually kind of rip open this way. You can see that this moth lost one of its legs in the paper. And if this was going to some type of scientific collection, I might glue the leg back on, but a lot of times the legs on butterflies and moths, they just kind of get put to the side because they're not generally a part of the defining features. And a lot of times when you're looking at something like this, people want to be looking at mostly the wings and not really the legs as much. And that is our first death's head. Now, when I'm preparing these papers, these are glassine envelopes. You can purchase them you can actually purchase these on Amazon. I believe they sell them for stamps and like wedding envelopes, I think. But I cut off all of these edges because those creases that are along the edges will kind of mess with the angle of the paper and they get really annoying. So I just take them off to begin with. And then these strips are actually good to hold on to and save for other insects. So I'll actually I have a little bag of these strips here. And I know from spreading death's heads previously that if I take this envelope, it's kind of the perfect size to take it and fold it in half. And then I'm just going to trim it this way and this way. And then that one envelope becomes enough glassine paper for 2 specimens. So I'm able to spread 2 specimens, and I'll be able to save the next glassine envelope for another specimen. So then I can actually reuse some of them to collect more moths. Now, these death's heads I did not personally collect. These ones were purchased, but then were sent over to me to spread. And I figured if I was going to be doing a job like spreading a bunch of death's head sphinx moths, I think I'm spreading a total of 40. Spreading all of these death's heads, I might as well share it with you. So I'm taking 2 pins. I want the pins to kind of cross over the top of its body, and it's going to kind of hold that body down into the chamber up here. But I want to keep it far enough forward that it's not going to affect the wings when they open. Then I'm going to go ahead and go between the abdomen and the hind wing, and we're putting some cross pins down here to make sure that the abdomen stays in that. Make sure the abdomen stays in the groove there. Alright, I think it's much happier now. Alright, and then I always, because there is not a pin through the center of this moth, the person I'm doing this for didn't want the pins through the center. So instead, I will take a pin and put it right in front of the head, because then when I go to pull and lift on the wings, I won't have any issues with the specimen moving. Never have. I found a dead red admiral once that I tried to bring home. Oh no, got smooshed. That's sad. There was once where I was in the car, I was in the passenger seat, and my mother was driving, and I knew we were only about a half mile from the house, and she hit a beautiful, like, pipevine swallowtail, with her car, and I watch it bounce off of the windshield, and I watch it bounce off to the side of the road. She's going like 45 miles an hour. I'm like, Mom, stop! And she goes, what? I'm like, really, stop! And so she stops and pulls over, and I run back the little bit and pick up the butterfly, this beautiful pipevine swallowtail, and I'm able to bring it home and keep it in the freezer. And I did end up spreading that one. I thought that's kind of a fun story. Sometimes it's like the oddest situations that you end up finding and keeping, or finding and collecting insects. That makes sense. You don't really have a purpose or a reason to do it. You could always do it with the intention of donating it to a scientific museum. You would have to then kind of follow protocols. A lot of museums like you to follow X, Y, and Z to make sure that your specimens don't take up like a whole bunch of space in their collection. But it's doable. Alright, so I'm pulling the antenna, oh my goodness. I'm pulling up this forewing here, and it almost looked good right about there. I'm going to go ahead and pin around it really quick so that I can turn on that red line. Alright. Yeah, that's going to be too high, I think. That's way high. But that's alright. I think that's probably closer. That's better. My caterpillars were kidnapped from the near pine bush. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so you stole your caterpillars from a pine bush and you are going to be giving them back shortly. So I always gently grab the front wings by right behind that front vein, and I can pull them up. Now, I generally want to keep a really tight grip on it, because the more times you drop, like that, the more times you drop the wing, the more likely you are to damage it. My body is pulling up a little bit, so I'm going to have to go back over to this lady. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Alright, we're going to have to fix that before we do this. So, the front of my body is really jumping up out of this channel, and it's affecting the way that I'm pulling the wings. So I'm going to just change the angle of these up here, so that hopefully the body can't come up like that on me. There we go. That'll be better. If I get another Trogus species wasp, I'll send it to you. Oh, that would be awesome. In fact, I've been trying to think of a way, a way to allow you guys to send me specimens, because I think it would be so cool to draw and talk about specimens that you collect. Then I can also be talking about specimens from your localities, which is even more cool. So I've been playing around with that idea, but I'd have to I think I'd have to send out instructions on how to send a specimen so that they could be a part of the collection. That would be super cool, though. Because you'd need to give me information about where it was collected and when it was collected and all of those types of things. So now you see how this left wing kind of came down a little bit. The only reason it would have done that is because we were messing with the body. It wouldn't have done that if it was just kind of shifting a little bit. But when we shifted that entire body, the whole wing shifted. So sometimes you have to go back and make sure that nothing like that's happening. I'm going to go ahead. We're tightening these papers down because I really like where they are, I think, right now. Keep in mind that when we want to pin the front wings of our Sphinx moth, we want the body to run a 90-degree angle from the bottom edge of the front wing, right here. You want this line and this line to cross. So what you're saying is that you regularly use a car as an insect collecting tool. I wonder if you can write off your car as a business expense. Oh, that is hilarious. I would love to yes and you. Yes, I have used my car as a collecting device, not only to, oh man, I wonder if I could find the article. I have a hilarious article. Yes, I have collected insects off of the front of my car, when you hit a dragonfly or you hit a grasshopper and it ends up stuck in the... I've collected a couple of them that were actually still pretty good specimens. But also, there was a time in my life where a collecting buddy and I, we would collect with like a 10 to 15 foot insect net handle, and we would just collect out of the window. So we would drive like somewhere between like 3 and 5 miles an hour, and we would collect on the brush on the sides of the roads. It was a great time. We would find just like an old country dirt road like that was next to some farm fields and just sweep the edges. Caught some really cool stuff doing that. Also, once while collecting with that method, I think we were in like Kentucky, or Tennessee. Anyway, we were collecting and pulled over too far, and it was like a rice paddy field or something, and we like dropped 1.5 feet down into the water, and we got stuck. And it took we were on this like crazy off of the beaten track road, and the tow truck driver took like 1.5 hours trying to find us. It was great. People kept pulling over and asking if we were stuck, and the car was like at a 25-degree angle. Like the car was like this, falling off of the side of the road. It's like, yep, we're stuck. But we made the best of it and collected a bunch of dragonflies there, which was kind of cool. Alright, so that is our first moth. Front wings and hind wings. Now, we have the wings all figured out. I want to take this cross section off of the top of the abdomen. Keep in mind these abdomens are big and they're heavy. So instead of letting it drag on the bottom, I want to lift it up a little bit off of the styrofoam. And maybe even just a little bit higher than where I want it, because it's so heavy it will come down and drag. Now, we did have these 2 pins that were up here crossing above the body, and those don't need to stay there now that the wings are situated. Especially because they might put weird imprints in the hairs of the skull. Alright, oh, let me get that. Alright, but I do want to come in here next to the head and kind of pick up those antennae. And I like to make sure that those antennae are either kind of close to the angle of the wings, and at least make sure that they are parallel to each other. Something like that. So that's our Sphinx moth. Let's see, I'm going to read a couple more of our comments. Inland pine barrens I go to frequently. One of the best spots for butterflies. Oh, that's really cool. I noticed this moth has a narrower, pointier abdomen than the one above. Is that just a matter of the top one having dried out and fluffed up, or is it actually different? Alright. So you want to know about the pointiness of the abdomen. I'm not sure. It makes me want to look at my other ones. Give me a moment. We're going to look behind the wall. Alright. Let's look at the other ones. Yeah, it might be male-female. So, like, this one's a little fluffier and a little more stout, but then this one is pointier and he's thinner. So my guess is that this one, the one that's the one that's wider and that has the stubbier abdomen, is the female. And then this one that has kind of the thinner abdomen and it's a little more pointy, I would say that is the male. And I'm seeing that across the board here, which is kind of cool because I didn't notice that before you mentioned it, Susan. So I would say male. This one is a little bit in between, but I would go with male. And then this one would be female. And then this one is really dark still. That makes me a little bit sad. But some of them don't brighten up the way others do. Like this one is beautifully bright. I love that one. It's probably my favorite right now. At least my favorite that are still around. All right. So we're gonna start on the other side of this board here. Oh no, my pins fell out of the thingamajig. That's fine. All right. I also had so I had an article, and it's an old article from like the 1930s or the 1940s, and it's really funny because it shows like a really, really old style vehicle, and they had built like bug nets around it. So they had built like a bug net off of the top, and then kind of multiple bug nets sticking out at different angles, and they were testing about the flight heights of different insects. So they were driving around with this car that had like a net at 3 feet, a net at 6 feet, a net at 10 feet, a net at 15 feet, and then they drove and then collected and saw like the differentiation in insects and in the height at which they fly, and that was so cool. And there's a picture of their ridiculous vehicle with all the nets, and I think it's so funny. But it would probably take me too long to find it. Alright, so we have our friend here. I think we're going to go from the bottom up, so we'll tuck him as close to the other abdomen as we can, because I know that it moves up a little bit. You wish you had discovered entomology before college? I guess most of my adventures happened before, during or after college, though. Most of my entomological crazy adventures happened post-college. See, I mean, I think that that's the best way to, it's also the best way to learn, right? Is to scrutinize the organism yourself. So it's like you're not sure which ones are the male or the females, so you like look really close and you just try and figure it out. And I guess it feels really awesome too when you do guess it right, you know. And I think that you do have that one right, that you're looking at the males and the females. And generally in moths, the females are going to be the ones that are thicker bodied because they need all that space for their eggs, whereas the males are going to have thinner bodies because they are the ones that need to fly when they travel to find the ladies. All right, so these forceps are just kind of wide tip forceps, but they do make kind of, they call them butterfly spreading forceps, but I actually recently found them on Amazon, and they were being sold as like stamp forceps for picking up stamps rather than spreading butterflies, and I just laughed at them. I'm like, no, those like flat, generally the forceps people use to spread butterflies and moths, I just can't find my pair right now. Instead of it being narrow all the way down, it gets narrow, and then at the end it's like a pad, or it gets like wider. It's kind of like a spatula shaped on the end, and there's no grippies on the inside that can damage the moth wing. So really the important thing is there's no grippies on the inside when you're working with butterflies and moths. That's why these ones are okay. They're not the best because I would prefer to have something wider so that the pressure wasn't on such a narrow point in the wing, but we are making it work. Hey, come back here. You guys regularly see my thinking face when I'm spreading, don't you? I'm just realizing that. Alright, that looks about straight. I'm gonna go ahead and put a paper on it. I wish I had started spreading moths using a camera on a computer, because I think it makes it that much easier to have a line that you can look at and set the camera up directly above the specimen so that you don't have to be arching your back all the time. Man, it makes my life a lot easier. Alright, let's make it straight. So, what type of methods do you guys, well, I guess, I'm not sure how many of you actually collect insects then. A lot of you just go out and see them and take pictures of them and the like. Do you curate your photo collection at all? When you're going out and, like, taking pictures of insects, sorry, my wing scooched down a little bit, so I took all the pins off so I could scoot it back up. And it was only a little itty-bitty minor, but I didn't like it, so we're fixing it. So my question to you is, when you are taking pictures of stuff that you're seeing outside, do you go back through and categorize your image? Do you just do them by dates, or do you go back through and do it by, like, species and organize them that way? Do you go back through and identify your stuff? How will you transport them back to the client once you're done? Just keeping them on the boards, or do you unpin them? The first drop-off, I left all of the pins in the specimens because they were still kind of wet. I do not prefer to give them the specimens when they're still wet. I'd rather them dry here and then send them to them when they're already nice and dry. And in that case, I will drop them off on the boards. But I'll take out most of the pins that are around the wings, because if they are dry, they shouldn't need every single one of those pins to hold them straight. And that way I can save a lot of my pins, and then I leave them. I actually do leave a plastic cup, kind of like this shape. I leave a plastic cup like this with the client so that when they take the pins off of them, they can just put them all in the cup and then return them to me. Because we've had multiple drop-offs for these specimens, I just pick up the last boards and the pins when I'm dropping the next ones off. So I guess halfway. I partially unpin them, but I do leave them on the boards. Oh, you got me interested in bugs later. Got it. Is the pad shape to spread the force over a wider area? Yes. Very much so. This one has a really pretty pattern on the hind wing. I agree with you. This one is really beautiful, and it's super, super bright. And I feel like when we lift this up also, there's just this really beautiful, almost gold color in the hind wing of this one. All right, we got the hind wing up. Could you spread specimens on a slanted board, like an artist's workspace, so you can be directly above the moth without having to lean over it so much? I like that idea. I've never had a workspace that was angled like that, but I think that is the answer to my problem. I think that if I wasn't using a computer like this where I could see the camera, I would definitely, after that suggestion, I would be spending a little bit of money on that. That's a genius idea. Yeah, because I think that if I was working on a more diagonal, like an angled workspace, I probably could see directly at the moth. And that would be super helpful when I was spreading to make sure things were even. Genius. Oh no! My middle wing went up too far, I think. Admittedly, I like where middle wing. I like where that hind wing was, but I want it to match the left one because the left one's the one that's already done. So, want it to have a little bit of space. Give it some space, bud. There. That's good enough. Alright, so that is number 2 for today. Let's go ahead and grab number 3. I put them up to a naturalist to identify and tag them so I can find them again in photos. And that's a great idea. I have a lot of my stuff on iNaturalist, but then I get behind. And so I think I have a good number of specimens that I've taken pictures of that I should put on iNaturalist, but just haven't yet. And I think that after a certain amount of time, I get so far behind that I forget to go back and look. But maybe that'll be a winter project for me, is going through my summer pictures. Yeah, the laziness, exactly. I don't always tag all of my things, and so sometimes it's difficult to find pictures, and sometimes I feel like maybe I want them just in a separate folder altogether so that they aren't all mixed in. But oh wait, we got our wings done here, but we still need to fix the abdomen and the antenna, right? Man, I got chit-chatting and I forgot. Also, I want to tuck this left leg in because we don't need that out there sticking up like that. There we go. Put that under your abdomen, Missy. There, so we have the abdomen picked up. Now we want to come in here, go by the side of the head, and we can just very gently pick up that antenna. And it's really kind of funny because I can't see the antenna. I just run the pin along the edge of the head, and then the pin picks it up for me. Because the antenna are the same color as all of that fur, all the seedy, all that hair up there. So it's really hard to see it. But you can just kind of run your pin along the edge. Now, oh, there they are. Like, now I've got to find my scissors. We've done 2 specimens, so we've got to cut another, I'm going to be cutting another envelope, just taking those edges off like I showed you earlier, and then cutting it into quarters lengthwise. That also makes it so that all of my strips are exactly the same, and I like that. I like when they all match. Now, some people will swear by one really long piece of wax paper, essentially, where you start at the top, you pull pin, 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 and then you go to the next one, you pull the wings, and you have one long piece of wax paper that goes the length of the board. Some people do that. So instead of having all of these individual pieces, it's just kind of one longer piece. I I think that that is like a good way to mass spread things, but sometimes when you're working on one moth and they're all connected to the same piece of wax paper, if you make a mistake, you can mess up more than one moth, and so that's not good either. I would just prefer to do it this way. If I've had to use a field guide or a naturalist to identify something, I usually tag the photo. That makes sense. Amanda, I'm so sorry. You're actually also the first person to ask about Friday's Invertober. That was yesterday, and I hadn't been feeling good for a couple of days, but I was making it through, and I was doing so good. And then yesterday, I fell asleep, and I normally get woken up by my significant other, because he knows I'm supposed to be live streaming, but he forgot because he was watching the Phillies game in the NLCS championships or whatnot, so I missed it. It's the first day of Invertober that I've missed, and I was so sad. And I woke up, and it was after midnight, and I was like, darn it! I took a nap. It was like 4 hours long, and I missed Invertober. Luckily, I didn't... Oh, someone's texting me. Luckily, I didn't have too many people mad at me. I went into, like, my chats and different types of places, and, Amanda, you're the first one to mention it. So, yes, I missed it, and I'm sorry. I fell asleep. I was trying to see if I can get one more on this board. I just don't think it's realistic. I didn't start them close enough to the edges, I guess. And I don't think another one is gonna fit here either. I might be starting a new board with this one. Oh, come on, friend. Well, actually this one might fit here. Are you going... oh yeah, I'm sorry, Susan. I did feel really bad. I guess I should send out an apology. We've been doing so good, too. We were doing so good. Oh, man. That's okay. I regularly have you guys tell me that I'm allowed to take a break, so it was accidental, but I did the thing. Oh, yeah, you guys may not have seen the underside of these. They are absolutely gorgeous. We haven't flipped them over yet. So, yeah, that's what they look like on the underside. These are the bottoms of their legs right here with these really beautiful golden hairs. They have that same striping on the bottom side of their abdomen. And then for their hind wings, if you look on the backs, instead of having two stripes back here, they have a stripe and then they have a spot, which is kind of cute. I'm not sure if it's supposed to look like an eye or not, but yes, they have an absolutely gorgeous ventral side. Sleepover live streams. Thank you for understanding. Are you going to do a meet and greet with your significant other on one of your pet days? Oh, that's hilarious. I don't know. Would you really like that? You could probably meet him on the day that we're playing with the cats, because he could tell you Lemmy's story. So there are 3 cats in the house. One of them is his, one of them is mine, and one of them is ours. So we have his, mine, and ours cats. His, hers, and ours. Which is funny. No pressure if he doesn't want to. I mean, I can ask him and see what he thinks. Because my camera's going to be set up in the living room anyway. So, we might be able to convince him to do it. He's not a bug person. Like, he's not a bug person. But, he does go out and hike with me, and he has experienced a lot of this craziness, you know. He helps me set up my blacklight when we're going out blacklighting, and he knows that whenever we camp, I always have to set up my sheet somewhere. So, you know, he's been a part of this a little bit. He may have collected 1 or 2 insects for me in the past. Alright, let's see. We're grabbing onto this wing. We want to grab right here at the top, right behind the coastal vein, that strongest vein on the front of the wing. I want to pull it up. I'm going to go here and put this line right about there. Oh, don't move! It moved. That's better. Does he make you deal with spiders in the house? That's really funny. No. We don't deal with spiders in the house. We just let them live in the house with us. Yeah, so neither of us are afraid of the spiders, so we just let them exist. They eat anything else that we don't want in the house. And really, we generally don't have too many spiders and things, because of the cats. They are pretty good hunters. There was one time I did have to catch a spider and put it out of its misery because Lemmy the cat had been playing with this poor spider to death. And it only had function of like 3 of its legs by the time I found it. It kept curling up into a ball, like trying to protect itself. And then every time it started moving, Lemmy would pounce on it. It was kind of sad. And then I saved it and put it out of its misery. Cats. Lemmy and Misty have both brought me live mice. Man. Misty, the first time she brought me a live mouse, she was so proud of herself. And there's this little mouse and it's squeaking in her mouth. And she just comes up to me and she wants to show it off, but she doesn't want me to touch it. And so I'm trying to get this mouse out of her mouth. And she's trying to run away from me. And it's like, no, babe, you can't have this. So we had to trade for a better treat. Alright, no! Oh, that was so good until it dropped. Alright. the caterpillar for death's head moths. They look wild. Yeah, I honestly, I'm not sure if I've ever looked it up. Give me a moment. Oh, cool. So they're like a yellow tobacco hornworm looking guy. So, something with Sphinx caterpillars, just in general, they're generally what we call horned. So if you look at the back of the abdomen, it has Sphinx moth caterpillars will generally have a horn coming off of the back of their abdomen. So that's why we call them like a tobacco hornworm, is because of the horn coming off of the back. And actually, in reality, in Michigan, people call the tomato horn, so they get tobacco hornworms on their tomato plants, and then they end up calling it a tomato hornworm when it's two different, very closely related species. They just eat each other's foods. Alright, so we've got our hind wing all pulled up. Let's go ahead and put some braces around it. Like an extra cute tobacco hornworm. Yeah, they're kind of like a bright yellow stripy tomato or a tobacco hornworm. There are some other really beautiful Sphinx moths that have crazy spines. Crazy horns. Alright, the tip of this wing needs to go up. Up. Why are you like that? Like that? It keeps dropping all weird. Why is it dropping funny? It's almost like this wing is not the right shape. Why are you are you like this? That's better. Alright, looking good so far. So we have spread, what, 3 Sphinx moths today. I am feeling good. We might as well go for number 4. We're going to be starting on a new spreading board. It looks a little bit like this. This board is just a little bit more narrow than the previous board, but I think it should still fit the wings because this one has a little bit of space along. This one still has a little bit of space along the edges, so I think this one's going to be really, really tight. It's going to be pretty close to the edge. We might have to add a couple of braces to the tips of the wings if we do anybody that's too big. The other thing is that this spreading board was originally made for moths that have smaller abdomens. So this one doesn't have a large enough channel in the center. And I hadn't used it yet, but I am running short on spreading boards. So I'm going to show you how I do this quick. Alright, I have my spreading board here, and it already has a channel. It already has a channel in it. It just needs the channel to be wider. And I definitely suggest that if you are doing this, you do it in a well aerated, place where you don't get to smell all the plastic fumes. But I will take a lighter and I run it along the inside channel, and that will it'll melt the styrofoam just a little bit and makes the channel larger. Kind of like that. And then let's see, I've got I went larger channel, and maybe right here one needs a little bit. There we go. And our moth's abdomens are going to fit again. Yay! Because they are pretty large. And heat is one of those ways that you can melt styrofoam rather than getting styrofoam pieces everywhere. I hate getting styrofoam everywhere, so whenever I can avoid it, I do. And when I'm cutting the original channel, I use a heat knife. So that I'm not actually cutting and serrating all the bits of the styrofoam and getting them everywhere. I'm actually just melting it apart. And I do suggest you do it in a well-ventilated area, yeah, so that you don't have to smell all the fumes. There we go. Switching it over. Boop. I have some extra pins now. I guess I'll just put them in this board. We'll use them. Oh no! We have a pin down, ladies and gentlemen. That is an emergency situation. Feet are in danger. I don't know if I'm going to find that one. That one sounded like it bounced. Definitely need to invest in one of those floor magnets. And actually, our praying mantis that we mounted last week is probably pretty dry now. So we could also take this praying mantis off of our pinning board. You know what? What if we draw this praying mantis during our next sketch? That's tomorrow. What if tomorrow I'm going to take this praying mantis off of our spreading board, and then I'm going to talk about it, and we're going to sketch it, and look at all the cool features. That's going to be so much fun. That'll be cool. I saw leafy splurge hawk moth caterpillars. Oh, that's cool. I don't think I've ever seen those. You know, that would be my guess, especially if they're eating, you said that the plant is toxic. A lot of the caterpillars that eat toxic plants become toxic themselves. So that would be for sure, that would be a really good guess. Are you abdomen shaming them? Yes. That is exactly what I'm doing, because I had a stack of like 14 spreading boards, and only 2 of them were large enough to even attempt to spread these moths. I have had to enlarge in every channel that I have of spreading boards to get these ladies done. I think, well, maybe I have 1 or 2 left over there. Also, somebody asked it, oh no, they didn't. I was just making that up in my head. Sometimes, I could actually show you. Sometimes if you wanted to spread a butterfly or a moth's wings, not as if you are doing them for display, so not wide, but if you wanted them like half open, like mid-flight, you can take essentially 2 little strips of styrofoam, and then you can adjust them left or right and pin the wings against them, so you can have a variety of different angles. And then is a good time to use 1 long strip of wax paper, because you can do like 5 or 6 of them at once if you are trying to just do them like they have opened their wings and they're flying away. Oh, good. Susan will be there for the praying mantis. That'll be so much fun. All right, so what do you think, ladies and gentlemen? We've spread something like 4 death's heads. I was just pulling another one out. Let's do one more. After this one, I might be done. Is that all right with you guys? I am kind of behind on these, though. I did want to be a little bit further along with them than I am. So there's its underside. While I get this piece of paper cut, you can go ahead and check that out. Like every time, I'm just cutting off these edgy parts. Oh, haha, I didn't need to cut this one up. I already had to. So I guess this one is, I'll put this aside for, I guess, the next two. I'll put it back in the relaxation chamber so that I don't forget. That's what I'll do. Alright, it looks like a bodybuilder with huge pecs. Oh, that's so funny. That is exactly what it looks like. Yep. And a 6-pack. Or a 3-pack for my moth. But it still looks powerful. I believe what you're looking at are the cocci. I would have to look at it underneath the microscope to confirm that. But I believe those patches there, what you're looking at, is that hip bone, that first segment of the leg. And it would kind of be like a pec in a way, because it's like the first, it's kind of like a hip bone. It's more like a hip bone. But it's right there in that vicinity. If you mix an arm and a leg and something or another. Oh. She almost looks like she could do those, like, peck dances, you know? Where they, like, doop, 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 doop. Alright, so we are going to try and put her up here as close to the front of this board as I think is about right. Because I want to see if we can get, the last one we only got 5 moths on, and I was hoping to get 6 on it. So let's see if we can get 6 onto this one. The last moth, I didn't spread the antenna or pull up the abdomen. I need to go back and do that. I always remember that I'm supposed to do something else on the previous specimen only when I'm starting the next one. That's happened 2 or 3 times in a row now. Oh, my incense burned to its end. That's how I know it's time to end the live stream. My incense is done. I like having incense burning when I'm spreading, because every now and again you do have strong odors, and I would much rather smell my incense than, for instance, plastic or the rubbing alcohol or ethyl acetate or PDB. There are so many chemicals happening, you know? Is there something steaming next to you? Yeah, that was my incense running out. When it hit the wood, it smoked a little bit lower. The smoke kind of fell in front of the camera. Made me look all spooky. Kind of like it was preparing me for Halloween or something. Oh, it's this. I'm like, what is that on my board? All right. Do you think the 2 broad patches below the top pair are also cocci? Are they actually a pair instead of one wide rectangle? That's a wonderful question. Let me look at another specimen. I believe you might have, I believe the answer might be yes, but I didn't check when I was looking at that one, so yes. Underneath here, this one is actually separated into two, and this one is actually separated into two. So squares 1, 2, and 3 are actually are separated. So like this one is 2. So there are 6 of them. So yes, the cocci are at the base. But then once you get past the third one, so after you get, there's 1, 2, 3. After you get past that, you start with the abdominal segments, and those ones are full. Good question. Cool. Yeah. It's just that they're so fluffy that they overlap each other and they look like they are one. I love when I'm holding the moth wing right about where I think it is, where I think it goes, and then it's correct with the guideline, you know? When it matches up perfectly with the guideline and you're like, your estimate was correct, that always makes me smile. It's like, aha, I knew it. And also, the more regularly I can do that, like, I know that my field pinned specimens will also benefit from being able to kind of eyeball some of this stuff. And I wonder about getting a field pinning board that sits on an angle, so that I don't have to bend over picnic tables all the time. I'm coming back over to this previous specimen. I'm just going to fix it really quick. I need to lift that abdomen, and I need to pull these antennae. And it's just going to be faster for me to do it right here than to pull the, than to move that specimen, especially because it's not done, and I'm afraid of something shifting. So I'm just going to fix this really quick. There we go. All right. Oh no! Yeah, we can't set the spreading boards on fire, but I've never set styrofoam on fire before. I've only seen it melt. I wonder how long it would have to be in contact with the lighter before it actually caught on fire. The hind wings on this one are gorgeous too. So that is our first pair of wings. Now we are going to pull up our hind wings. I think I'm getting quicker at this. That makes me happy. Oh, we were talking about field pinning. That's what we were talking about. So when I am out, especially like last year when I went out on my road trip and I was collecting and blacklighting at night and then pinning during the day, I was doing a lot of field pinning so that by the time I got home, half of my specimens that I collected were already spread, which was great. But I think that there are definitely some improvements to be had with my field spreading gear, and I would really like to make some of my insect drawers mobile, so I brought them with me. and I could pin and spread and kind of keep them safe in a... And I'm thinking about making a cabinet that can fit like 2 drawers and then pinning supplies. Maybe I could hide a diagonal table in there. So I've been thinking about making something like that, for especially for camping trips and for road trips. I love road trips across the country, especially the type that you get to collect bugs every night. I've driven across the country now probably 4 or 5 times from a variety of places, but generally down to Arizona has been my target most of the time, but all over the place to New Orleans and through all types of cities and stuff, but east to west. I love it. I'm thinking I might visit California this year. Or next year. Within the year. There we go. So, we have our friend here. Well, her wings are straight across, but her body might not be straight. We might have to straighten her body so that it matches her wings. That's kind of funny, huh? But I think the body ended up at this weird angle, and I want to make sure that... That's better. Yep, that's better. I'm much happier with that. Do you organize your collection by location, trip, or by taxonomy? I organize... So when I am field pinning, so like if I am pinning my insects out in the field, I will pin them and organize them by location during the trip. So all of these ones will be from one spot and they'll all be pinned together, and then there will be a whole nother spot for another day and a different place. But then, and then I need to I do need to keep those together until they have their locality labels on them. So insects have 2 labels. They have the first label, the label that's on top is the locality label. It generally has the country, state, county that the specimen was collected in, and then a more specific location, like a state park name or a road name or a crossroads, would be on the second line. The third line, if you know it, are the GPS coordinates or the closest GPS coordinates that you know of where you collected it. And then the fourth line is year. The fourth line is who it was collected by and when it was collected. So generally you type COLL : and then you give the person's name. Mine say P. Nichols on them. And then the year they were collected at the very end. So that if you are looking over your label, the top left says the country, the top left corner says the country, the bottom right corner gives you the date, and the bottom left corner gives you who collected it. So you can kind of look to any of the corners to give you information, but then you have to go through and kind of read the label to figure out exactly where it was collected. So that's label number 1. That's the top one. The second label on an insect specimen is the determination label. So that is after you've got them all organized by location, and now you're going back through and you're identifying everything. And then my collection is organized taxonomically. So it's by taxonomy. So after I go through and identify things, it gets ordered that way. But I do have a small drawer of undetermined, like a small unit tray of undetermined insects that I'm not sure what exactly family they're in, or just what type of insect they are. Some of them are kind of tricky, so I do have a box of insects that tricked Trisha, and we are working on them. You could go visit Avea and collect at her restoration site. Oh, that would be so much fun. Where is Avea in the country? So, let's see. In April, like the end of April, April 28th to 30th-ish of 2023. Let me make sure that's about right. Yeah. So, like, the very, very end of April, Avea is in California, in the Bay Area. So, I'm guessing the Bay Area is San Francisco. And I have actually planned a trip down over to California for teaching. I'm hoping to find a couple of more classes to line up, but I'm going to be flying into the Los Angeles region. And the San Francisco Bay Area is like a 5-hour drive, so I would have to kind of split it up and I would have to try and figure that one out. Yeah, because I'm planning on going into LA, but it's so close when you consider that I'm coming from Philadelphia, you know? It's on the other side of the country. Only 5 more hours? You know, I could almost do it. Unless you specifically want to do 2 stops. Yeah, exactly. And then I would have to kind of align programs for both places. It would make the trip a little bit trickier, but it would also make it kind of longer, which might be fun. Alright, so I do want to thank you ladies for hanging out with me today while I was spreading these death's heads. I hope that you have learned something, learned a little bit about pinning or spreading, or maybe about labels. We got to talk a little bit about those and how to make them. We can go deeper into label making if you would like. If you're curious on how to build a scientific insect collection that would be able to be donated, I actually just recently built kind of like a shopping list for people who are just starting out with insect collecting and spreading. Some like basic things you would need to purchase. I don't know if you guys would be interested in that, but I've been sharing it with my students. But in all seriousness, I bet Avea and Jack could hook you up with folks in the Bay Area. You know, if I could get a couple of classes in the Bay Area, it would be worth the 5-hour drive, because that drive is just a 1-day drive. Like, I could wake up in the morning and drive 5 hours and be teaching a class that night. Although my brain would be swimming a little bit, I would probably prefer to take that day to rest and then teach in the morning. And I could fly into LA and fly out of San Francisco. If I did a rental car, I could do one that I picked up and dropped off at like a budget or something. You know, this might work. I have to line up some details. Maybe I'll reach out to Jack and Avea and see what types of things they have out there. Because I would be totally willing to do a bug hike or go out and do a little bit of aquatic collecting. I would just have to know what I needed so that I made sure that I had my equipment with me. Yeah, that would be so much fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, as it turns out, if I can make it and make it worth it and make it happen, I can also travel to you. I've been in conversation with people out in California about flying out there and doing a series of classes. That is looking at to be the end of April. So if you know the end of April or the very, very beginning of May are looking for a program in the LA or San Francisco area, I'm going to be traveling and teaching about bugs, and it's going to be so much fun. I'm only going to be doing it if I can get people to line up also. Like, I have one program set up, but I need at least 4 or 5 more to make it worth the plane ticket and getting out there. So I'm hoping that by chit-chatting here on the live stream and also reaching out to some local libraries, schools, and parks, that I'm hoping to get a couple of programs out there. But if you know anybody in those regions, send them over to my website, send them over to my Contact Me page. Let's make this happen. All right. I also teach on OutSchool. It's a program for students that are school-aged, so 5 to 8, 9 to 12 generally are the ages that I teach, but I can teach high schoolers if you have a high schooler that's interested in kind of starting entomology early, I can definitely teach them. I have the class written up. I just don't have any students aligned for it yet. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit the little bell over to the side. That makes sure that you get a notification to your phone about when I live stream. Right about here, in this bottom right corner, there is a little QR code that helps you, that donates directly to my PayPal account for Insectopia. That helps me purchase stuff for my insect collections. It also makes sure that I have the continued ability to be here with you, ladies and gentlemen, and to teach you, and it's so fun. It's something that I enjoy. Yep. So if you feel free, if you want to drop me a couple bucks, go ahead and do that. I am at Insectopia 2015. If you are looking for me on Facebook or Instagram and you just look up at Insectopia without the 2015, you're not going to find me, unfortunately. So go ahead and make sure you enter those digits at the end. All right. I hope I can make it work too. I am really crossing my fingers. I think it would be a lot of fun to go out and sketch with people out there, to go out and do a couple of like in-person bug hikes. Maybe go out and get our feet wet and go and collect in a stream or a river if we can get the equipment out there. So, you know, just trying to make things happen. All right. Maybe they'd want to have a class. Oh, it called Placerita Canyon Nature Center. I will go ahead and put it on my list of nature centers to reach out to. Thank you so much for the suggestion. Yay! Awesome. So, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night, and stay buggy. Bye!